we can't go back. If we've taken on a vehicle, we've taken on an office, we've financed a bunch of things, we've taken on a big loan, we have to continue to outsell the problem. Hello and welcome to the Service-Based Business Society podcast. I am your host, Tiffany-Ann. If you're ready to scale your success, grow your business, and live that entrepreneurial life, click subscribe because we're about to get started. Welcome back to another episode. Today we're talking about an important piece of business, especially in today's economy and business environment. So often as business owners, things start to feel a little messy and we pull back. We say, hey, I tried, it didn't work, and I went backwards. We see it a lot with hiring. The comments of, I hired a team, they didn't show up, it was super rough, they disappointed clients, so I let them all go, and now I do all the job myself. Super common. I grew, I took on this new space, but that, thing we were working on, that project, it didn't really work out, but now we have all this extra space. Or I invested in all of this inventory thinking that I was going to sell it over the Christmas season, and I didn't. All three are examples of when we start to grow, we start to push, it doesn't work, we run up against some kind of resistance, and then we come back. We say, hey, it didn't work, I need to go back. I need to go back to my comfort zone. While there's a mindset portion of this, of the comfort zone and pushing against it and being willing to be uncomfortable, there's also a dollar and cents part of it. And so often those that focus on coaching the mindset really focus on ignoring the dollars and cents portion of it. They will say things like, make the right decisions and everything will just work out. To me, this is the same kind of advice that comes back to, and I was having a conversation this weekend, as you know, from a couple of episodes ago, I'm working on optimizing my life and business so I can get back to exercising, working out, and finding time. And as I was standing there chatting with someone who is in the fitness industry, they were talking about how, their coach and mentor basically had been in the fitness industry for a very, very long time. They had been doing professional bodybuilding for their entire adult life. And how now, with the addition of kids, wife, and whatnot, he was really struggling. He was like, I can't do it at that level anymore because I don't have all of the hours in the gym. I need to take my kid to soccer practice. I don't have all of these types of things. And so there's this piece. And this is the kind of person that would have before at one time said, you make time for what is important to you. I tie it together because we've all felt at one time or another when someone gives you a piece of advice and you feel like they don't get it. Maybe it's someone and you're talking about your kids and you're like, oh, I'm running up against this thing and they keep having this, it's this thing and blah, blah, blah. And you're going through the situation and they're like, oh, well, you just do X, Y, Z. It's totally fine. Super easy. It's the business coaches that say, if you just make the right decisions, the money will follow. You have to manifest the money. It will be great. Think big money thoughts. It's the same people that say, you can make time for anything. You make time for what's important to you. If you want to spend 2 hours in the gym, make that time. If it's important to you, you will make that time. It doesn't work that way. Whether you are rich, poor, business owner, employee, you're a stay-at-home mom, every single person has the same 24 hours in a day. Every single person has a limiting factor of resources in time, money, energy. There's no way around those things. Sure, we can make great decisions and make more money, but no matter what, money is not endless. I guess there are a few people in the world where money truly is endless. But I don't think those people are listening to this podcast. I'll be honest. They're doing other things because they would not resonate with what we're talking about here. And so we all know, marketing, messaging is all about, does your message land? So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that if you're listening to this podcast right now, that while you might be in a great financial spot, money is still an object. It's not completely endless, because no matter how much money you have, there's still a piece to it that it has an end. I remember when I first started, I've spoken before about how I was really a part of the competitive horse community for a huge part of my life until I was in a car accident. And so one of my first jobs was teaching riding lessons. And I used to make $25 an hour. Now, back in the day, $25 an hour, straight, at late teens, that was pretty decent money. Now, sure, it wasn't, many, many, many hours, but I would work for, 6-7 hours on a Saturday and a couple of, weeknights. I was making pretty good money. But I remember that I used to teach this one lesson. It was one of the first students that I had in a private one-on-one setting. And her mom would pay me cash, $25, and I would take that $25 and I would drive straight to the gas station. I had a Chevy Cavalier, and I would fill up that gas tank for $25. And, I remember this kind of comes back to the, we walked uphill both ways to school in a snowstorm kind of conversations that we hear from people older than us. But when we actually look at it, that hour paid for the gas for my entire week, $25, filled up the gas tank. That was at that time of my life, I had $25 problems. My cell phone bill was cheap. My gas tank was cheap. It was cheap. Life was cheap. But at that moment, perhaps if we had a big snowstorm and I couldn't teach because of those days, I taught outside. I had $25 problems. If I didn't teach, I didn't have the $25, then I had to come up with the gas from somewhere else. As we go through life, the $25 problem becomes the $50 problem, becomes the $100 problem, becomes the $250 problem. You go through life, and depending on your phase, your money situation just changes. Money is still a quantifiable object. And to be honest, money is one of the easiest measures of success. Now, you might say, money isn't everything. And it's not. But money sure can solve a lot of problems because, if you think about it, hey, I'm super busy. My house is a mess. Oh my goodness, I'm feeling frantic. Okay, well, if you have money, you can afford to hire someone to clean your house. Oh my goodness, I just can't get to, I need to be able to meet with these people. Okay, well, you can travel because you can afford it. So all of these types of things, money is still a measure. So how does this all tie in? How are we talking about, the fitness people who say you can make time for things and money, and how does this all tie together? Well, it all ties together because at the end of the day, we have to look at the resources we have and the limitations of those resources and know that these kind of decisions, when someone giving you feedback is out of touch, and that's really what it is out of touch with your particular situation, it just doesn't feel like they understand. And so today we're not going to talk about those kinds of pieces of just believe. Now, I do believe that mindset is a critical piece, and I do believe that there is an element of making decisions from a place of where you want to go, not a place of where you are. I do believe in all of these pieces. So I ride a delicate balance of understanding the mindset, but also understanding the dollars and cents, the quantity of time. I am a realist, and one of the biggest struggles I had early on in my management career was someone would share to me their vision. They would say, I want to do, and they would go on in this elaborate, what I would call pie in the sky concept. And then I would come in and I would say, well, but, and I would list off all the reasons why that was a challenge. Or I would come in and I would say, but what about this? And what about that? And we can't do that. And we can't track that. And we can't calculate that. And we don't have the system for that. And I remember someone saying to me, but we can get them, but we can do them. Think bigger. I have always been rooted in what is the actuals. It was what makes my particular skill set very complementary to a very visionary person, because I am less visionary and more realist. However, the true realist really struggles is to think big because we see the problems, and by problems, I mean, we see the shortfalls in resources. We see the shortfalls in, availability of those resources. And ultimately, it comes down to being able to kind of merge the two together. And I think that there is a wisdom, we'll call it that, age, wisdom, whatever we're going to call it, that comes with knowing where you are in that kind of spectrum. Because those who just see the big picture, the visionary, and don't worry themselves at all about how to actually execute that, well, often they need someone that complements their skill sets to help them with that piece. And those who are maybe a little more like myself, who see the challenges in numbers, who see the shortfalls in resource and focus on those items, they often need to really think about, when is that the way we want to think, but when do we want to think about the other? So today we're talking about being able to outsell your problems. And so we're going to tie this all together, these discussions of resources and mindset, but we're really going to root it in the dollars and cents of things. So we talk a little bit about people running into restriction, running into a struggle with progress, momentum. We see the issue with people having momentum. And when it comes to being able to push through that, there comes the mindset piece, there comes all of these bigger concepts. However, we often say, I can't afford to do that solution. Someone says to you, oh, it's really easy. And you say, oh, my office is too, I'm feeling like I don't have enough space. I need to buy more equipment. I need to do this. Okay, well, just go lease another warehouse. Okay, well, what does that cost? There's all of these other pieces that go to it. When we look at outselling the problem, we really lean into the fact that once we have committed to a certain amount of overhead, we have committed to a certain amount of compensation, we have committed to a certain style, it's very hard to go back. So if you think about the decision a lot of entrepreneurs at one time or another have made the decision to leave employment for someone else. Now, there are some entrepreneurs who started, they were entrepreneurs from day one, but many people started with, much like myself, you go to school, you get a job, you follow this process. Then you decide, hey, actually, I've decided I would like to start my own business. That process means that at one point you took a step away from certainty in your compensation, and decided to start your own business. A lot of uncertainty. And so it's not so much that if you show up, you get paid. Ultimately, sure, there's a performance component to having a job, but there's no immediate consequence. If you show up and you keep showing up and you do what they ask you to do, mostly, chances are you're going to keep your job. You're going to keep getting paid. Your paycheck will show up in the bank. As a business owner, that doesn't happen. So you walked away from that certainty. You had a lifestyle built on a certain amount of money. And so now when you started your business, you basically need to make a certain amount of money or it doesn't work. Then the dollars and cents don't math. It's a funny expression, but the numbers have to work. When we talk about outselling the problem, the first piece that we're going to talk about is the fact that you can't cost cut your way to a profitable business. It doesn't work. There's ways to optimize and add profit. And one of the best ways to add profit to an already working business is to review your overhead. It's the reason why when you go into a newer business, often they have a little more, they're spending a little more, liberally. And then as they get bigger, especially if they start to franchise, they get bigger, they go more corporate, and suddenly the toilet paper in the bathroom is single ply. Why? Because they buy enough toilet paper over the year that the difference between single ply and triple ply makes a difference. Because there's enough of it to make a difference. 24 rolls in a quarter, single ply, triple ply, whatever. But as you get bigger, you start to see these pieces. So the way that you can make businesses more profitable is to cost cut. It only works if the business is already successful. You cannot take a business that is failing and cost cut your way to success. It doesn't work because typically you'll have to cut what you actually need to do the job. So yes, if you're trying to add more profit, reviewing, cost cutting, and making savings where possible, it works. The number one thing I say to people when they're trying to add more profit is review your subscriptions. I know this seems super simple, but how many subscriptions, how many things do you pay for that you don't use? And annual subscriptions are the biggest offenders, because what happens is you sign up for something, you sign up for the annual, and in 12 months, your business evolves and changes, carries on, and you forget to, it fades out over time. 12 months later, you forget the subscription even exists, and then it renews. Now, if you're super on top of those type of things, you see that renewal, you contact the company and you say, actually, I'd like to cancel, and they refund you. From a business perspective, sure. You get the money back in about 5 days on your credit card and all is not lost. However, a lot of people are not on top of these type of things. And so all of those emails are in amongst other emails in their inbox somewhere. They're not doing their books on time all the time. Or they have a bookkeeper doing the books. Great, they're on top of things. But how does the bookkeeper know that you don't use that subscription anymore? If you are doing some kind of advisory service, and we do offer this with our clients, we can go through subscriptions and we can say, okay, well, what do we use this for? Are we still using it? What do we use this for? So often people use a bunch of systems, a bunch of applications that have crossover. So they'll have this one that, they pay this for and they use the first 3 features, but they don't use maybe the social scheduling feature because they already had a social scheduling app that they were using when they signed up for that one. So now we've got, although we could actually take these 2 apps and make it one, we just never really got around to it. I am guilty of this for automation tools. So we started with Zapier way back in the day. Most people, most business owners who are tech savvy have some kind of automation account. So we start with Zapier. Then we get to Pabbly. Well, Pabbly is a great deal. Pabbly is much less expensive per automation than Zapier. But then we'd have to move the automations from Zapier to Pabbly. We'll get to that. So now we have Zapier and we have Pabbly because Pabbly is a great deal. Then there's just a few automations that are not possible in Pabbly. So then we add Make, used to be Integromat. Before you know it, you have a subscription to all 3. You have some automations in all 3, and there's a decision that would have to be made and some effort that would require to condense. So we pay for them, and we just keep paying for them, and we think we'll get to that. It's on a list, and it doesn't happen. It happens with all sorts of apps, all sorts of softwares. People have a website in one platform, and then they'll start an online course, and that'll be in another platform, and then they're over here with this platform. And so that is one of the easiest ways to make a business more profitable, is just to cut, just to condense and cut. And oftentimes, as a quick profitability tip, the easiest way to do that is to actually go on to something like Upwork and post your project and say, I would like you to condense all 3 of these. If we go back to our example, Zapier, Pabbly, and Make, I need this to be one. I have this many automations in this one, this many automations in this one, this many automations in this one. I think it has to be this platform because of this restriction, but let me know. Tell me what it costs. And you can say, oh, sure, I had to pay someone to combine those things, but I paid for that in 2 months. The rest is canceled and done. That is a way that you can add and you can evaluate return on investment of paying someone very quickly, and you can make more money. But today we're talking more about outselling the problem from a perspective of you can't cut your way to being profitable. So if you have invested in some kind of space, office space, co-working space, warehouse space, retail space, any of these things, that is one of the biggest investments that you can make in your business because it also has a certain life expectancy. So, if you sign on to a lease, you now have to decide that you can afford that lease now, and you can afford that lease next month, and then every month for the lease duration thereafter. You think, of course I can take it on, no problem. Bear with me, leases go on for a long time. You have to be really committed to making that work. People hire, they say, oh, I want to hire 2 or 3 more people. They're going to need offices to work in. We're going to move offices. We're going to do this. And then you decide, you know what? I actually want to go in a different direction. Perhaps it has nothing to do with downsizing your business and everything to do with the fact that you can use technology instead of people, and now you just don't need those people. COVID really showed how many people did not need giant offices. Huge companies said, I don't need all this space. And they went back. They downsized. But the concern as a smaller business is that you now have an overhead amount that you need to cover. Sometimes you can't go back. Vehicles is another one. People take on these vehicles. Something that my mom said to me a long time ago, years and years ago, stuck with me. She said, you will still be paying, and I wanted this car. I don't even remember what kind of car it was that I wanted, but I wanted this car, and she said, you will still be paying for that car long after you're done having fun with it. And I often think about that when I'm extending any kind of financing. If you've heard previous episodes, you know that I advocate for using business financing, keeping your cash available, your working capital, using financing. But it needs to be done in a way that still makes sense. If you have something, say a computer, and you know that the average life expectancy of some brands of computers is 2 years-ish. You don't want to finance that over 5 years because you're still going to be paying for that computer, but you have to buy a new computer. Those are the types of things. So we can't go back. If we've taken on a vehicle, we've taken on an office, we've financed a bunch of things, we've taken on a big loan, we have to continue to outsell the problem. We have to go forward. We can't go back. And so then we have to look at different things. Now, there are other ways than just growing slowly and organically. It's one of the reasons why acquisition is such a powerful tool in business, because you can add additional revenue, you can add additional capacity to your business, you can just become bigger. So a lot of times businesses get to a size where now they need to invest in, you've added team members maybe, but you need someone to manage. You need another person with similar skill set to your own. And you need to be able to afford that person. And you think, I can't. Well, we have to look at ways that we can make that happen. Maybe we need to acquire another business that has someone that manages, that isn't the owner. And maybe now you have your revenue plus their revenue, and then you have this manager, and now both businesses become slightly more profitable because now they're sharing the cost of the manager. Ultimately, your business can afford to continue to grow. So when it comes to moving forward, we can't cut to success. We can cut to better profits. We can cut to more optimization. We can do all of those things, but very, very rarely can we ever just cut to the point of making a business successful. Because usually, business owners, entrepreneurs, very resourceful people. Usually, if it was easy to just get rid of something, they would have already done it. It's like, oh, can't really afford that. Get rid of it. It doesn't always work that way. The next piece, profit margins. Knowing your profit margins makes it a little easier to make those decisions, to make a decision of whether you are being successful, whether you're not being successful. I looked through a business, and this piece of advice really focuses on owner-operated businesses. If you are operating your business, now keep in mind, being a business owner is oftentimes a lot of work. You work a lot of hours. And so some of those hours we just kind of roll into being a business owner. But if you are part of your business, you are selling your time. So if you are a photographer and you are taking the photos, if you have a cleaning company and you are cleaning the homes, if you are an electrician and you are the person, you have an electrical company, but you are still working in the field as an electrician. All are examples. Often what happens is people don't compensate themselves for that time. They say, oh, my business pays me about, $5,000 a month. When you actually break down the numbers, when you actually look at everything, you get all the books done and you say, okay, how much money did we make? And you work that back. Are you actually making anything an hour? Your business, the value of your business. So whether you want to work your business forever, whether you want to pass it off to whatever your exit plan is, when we talk about building value in a business, no one wants to buy your business if they have to work 100 hours a week for $3 an hour. No one wants to do that. It's usually a gradual thing. We work harder, the business grows, but we don't increase our salary, we invest it back. It's a strategy, but it can't go on forever. You must know what your time is actually worth. Is your business worth doing? Are you making any money? we must decide how that works, because you only have so many hours in a day. So if you're managing your business, so you're working on the business, then you're actually still in the field in doing whatever the service is. Now you're working in the business. You have to decide, what is that all worth? Right? There's a cost of doing these things, and you have to know, are you profitable with that? And how can you grow it in a way that is more profitable? We're talking about outselling the struggle, outselling the problem. It means that you need to be able to at least know what the problem is. And so owner-operated business is super common. People have no idea how much they are actually making. And this is even worse in the case of an LLC in the US or a sole proprietor in Canada, because oftentimes people don't take any kind of set compensation. They just take from the bank. I needed $100 for this. I needed $2,000 for that. I paid the visa. I ran the trip through there. All these types of things. And so it's like this slow death by 1,000 cuts. You have no actual tangible amount of how much you got paid. And it isn't until the books are caught up that you say, oh, that's how much I pulled out of my business. That's what it paid me. There's nothing worse than someone who has not taken any compensation. Maybe they've taken a little bit here and there in the form of some personal charges on the business account, but we're talking negligible. They get to the end of the year and they say, oh, my business made $20,000. Great. That is amazing. Look at that. We made $20,000 last year. And you say, okay, how much did you pay yourself? Oh, well, I didn't really. It's like, okay, well, maybe you took $10,000 through the year in kind of random charges. So your business paid you $30,000 for the year. Okay, well, what were you making when you worked for someone else? What was the compensation then? Oh, I used to make $65,000 a year. What's the plan here? The numbers, the dollars and cents, they don't add up. In every phase of growth, if we go back to the beginning of the episode, we were talking about $25 problems turn into $50 problems. Growth can be a great problem-solving tool because you can buy more solutions, you can afford more things. You don't start out your business, your startup, with a social media manager and a bookkeeper and, a legal team. You don't. You are that. And as your business grows, you add these things. Growth can be a great problem-solving tool. Growth also creates new challenges at each new phase. So I always talk about optimizing to make sure that you're still profitable. A lot of times businesses go through they are not profitable to start as they gain traction. Then they become profitable and success starts to happen. But then the business starts to get so big that it's very hard to manage with its current resources. We need another manager. We need someone in the, an additional administrator. We need this, we need that. Maybe we need a space. Then we invest in all of those things, and then the business grows, but maybe not at the same pace in which you're investing. Then it becomes less profitable. A lot of businesses stay there because a lot of times in that phase, everything feels critical. Everything feels so time sensitive and important, and people just start throwing money at the problem. I need an administrator. I interviewed this person. She was great. I need her. Go. I need a new truck. Okay. I went to the dealership. They offered me this. I got it. Done. I needed to hire this. Oh, we made a mistake. Insurance went up. Okay. I just covered that. It's very easy when you have money to throw money at the problem. However, when you do it in a way that doesn't have an end, you just end up spending more money. It's those businesses that have been around for a long time that look around their team and say, I don't even really know what that person does, but she makes great money. Or he's been here a really long time. He's a nice guy. We haven't really seen anything tangible in a while. People stay for a long time, their wage goes up, their vacation days extend, all of these types of things. And oftentimes the actual tangible result, because it all kind of gets out in the wash. You have a lot of people doing a lot of things, but they all cost money. So we really need to focus on how do we make that profitable? How do we shift that back? How do we make sure that it's just a phase and that we go back to now being profitable like we were before that big upgrade? If we think about, in time, there was like the industrial revolution, and now they say the technology revolution, all these things. In your business, it's the spending revolution. You need to make sure it is just a time period and that you go back and figure out, okay, well, now what do we need to do? One of the metrics that we have in our enhanced reporting package in our bookkeeping agency is, so we offer this enhanced awareness reporting package. And one of the things we look at is, what was your fixed costs? Every month we say, what was your fixed costs? And then we say, what was your fixed cost per dollar of revenue? And then we say, what is your variable cost per dollar of revenue? And we should see that the fixed costs stay pretty consistent unless there's an investment made in resources. And then we should see that, as the business grows, the dollar of fixed expenses, of overhead expenses per revenue should come down a little bit. And then we want to see our variable expenses very consistent with the revenue. We have several businesses, 24 cents per dollar of revenue goes to their variable expenses. And as they grow, they just want to keep that the same, 24 cents. It is knowing those numbers that allows us to really be able to have a look, to examine, to optimize, to make the business more successful. However, the decision there ties back to piece number one. Once you've done all of that, it's very hard to go back. So how do we avoid? We make sure that we're thinking about the longevity of decisions. We're making sure that we're not overcommitting even when it starts to feel frantic. Sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, I need to hire. And then they're like, oh, I need to hire 3 people. The first person starts, the second person starts, everyone's starting to feel reprieved. Then the third person starts and you're like, ooh, we're out of work. Really understanding each decision and the longevity and how it will affect things. Now we'll talk a little bit about mindset. I know I was hard on the mindset early on. The coaches, those who are really focusing on mindset. Mindset is a critical piece. It really is. We need to be focusing on expansion, thinking of how we can expand, thinking of different revenue streams, thinking of diversifying our businesses. That mindset is so important. Mindset should not be underestimated. It should not be kind of dwarfed in comparison. Caveat with that is that mindset, along with dollars and cents that make sense, is where the magic is. It's why I talk a little bit about, I obviously love numbers, data, analytics, and people often seem really surprised when I say it works best with entrepreneur intuition. Both pieces on their own, powerful. Together, unstoppable. Really being able to put those two together in a way that serves the business, the owner, everything very, very well. We talked a little bit about different ways, but when we're looking at outselling into our success, ultimately we have to still, even when business is growing, even when things are getting messy, even when you think, I don't want any more of whatever it is, you must still keep a piece of your mind on, but we must keep growing in some way. We must continue to keep a piece of our brain on growth. How do we keep growing? Are we growing in education? Are we growing in resources? Are we growing in revenue? Are we growing in profit? This season on the podcast, we're really going to be leaning into some tangible tips to help us optimize our business and remain profitable through evolving business conditions. We have started to see interest rates decrease, which is fantastic, but a lot of business owners committed to big working capital loans when times were tough. Some of those have fixed interest rates, so you may still be struggling with higher interest costs and whatnot over a period of time. Keeping your mind in the game. Think of your business as a game. How can we succeed? What do we need to do? What are the players we have to deal with? We have money, we have time, we have effort, we have all of these pieces. How can we combine all of these resources, all of the players we have to win the game? When you can do that, that is when you can scale your success. Don't forget to click subscribe, like, comment below, and share the episode with a fellow entrepreneur. If you want to take our episodes on the road, they are available everywhere you listen to podcasts.